All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have David, the behaviorist, and then we're going to get right into it. David, how you doing today?
Awesome. It's a lovely day in paradise, is it not?
Yes, it is, and I'm excited to jump in and hear all about what it means to be a behaviorist. But first, let's start with hearing a little bit more about yourself and what you like to do for fun.
What I like to do for fun. Well, I'm actually an intimate partner profiler. So for fun, I like to notice what people are doing and notice how they're interacting.
Mhm.
Sounds like a really weird kind of thing. However, it's always fascinating to see the unconscious versus the conscious.
Yeah.
So behaviorist, to give you an example, I guess, of my life, early life childhood trauma. Fast forward to join the army for 9 years, kind of grew me up pretty quick. Became a private investigator, got to do a bit of surveillance work. And then I became a mental health social worker after that. It's kind of a really weird change in career pathway. And I've been in private practice for probably about 17 years, I would say. First of all, in mental health services for government, then as a private practitioner, working on basically how human beings interact and how they connect with one another. And I wrote some profiles about how intimate partner relationships work. And I had some colleagues say, Dave, we really want you to release those profiles. And I said, okay, it's taken about 3 years to correlate all that lot. And I'm just about to release a book on intimate partner profiles. In other words, how do you actually work out who's right for you based on our epigenetics, genetics, our sex map from Dr. John Money, and a whole bunch of other things that help you work out, who's going to be perfect and right for you. So literally, that's me in a nutshell. So please ask me anything you like.
First, how do you work out who's right for you?
Wow, it's a good question. Well, it takes a little bit of investigation. I mean, our we're pretty pre-programmed. I hate to tell you. So I would say about 85% of our behavior is literally pre-installed. So first, we have to know a little bit about our epigenetics, which is about 3 generations of experiences, and I'm really making this as simplified as possible because it's really complicated. It's about 3 generations. What our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, how they kind of engaged in relationship, because that's actually installed into us. Then we really want to understand that when we're born, we got some genetics and epigenetics on board. However, we're pretty much an absorbent sponge, and we're absorbing everything that's happening around us, and we're transforming that into sensory data. Although we don't have a conscious mind to assess that sensory data, so it's pure experiencing. We're going to call that a default mode setting. So literally our first profile that we have is installed into us by others. It's not even our own.
Yeah.
And that's your default profile. Now we actually encode our relationship choices between the ages of 5 to 8. So even then, you're pre-installing what you're likely or whom you're likely to be attracted to, based on your emotional evolution, which is really about moving up past the last generation and not making the same mistakes they made. Because nature, and I work in nature primarily, and nature is anything that, for me, nature is anything that is below awareness. It's literally it's like an algorithm, but it's a very very complicated algorithm. So literally, when we are getting older, let's say we're getting into our adolescence, we get another profile. And then when we get into adulthood, we get another profile. So there's kind of about these 3 kind of interacting profiles that we're going to have. So what we normally do is we will normally be attracted to that person on that sex map, which is our early life profile.
Mhm.
And that person may or may not be exactly correct for us. So to understand how to find your perfect match, it's about really getting to know yourself, self-awareness, getting to understand where you came from, and getting to sort, test, and qualify whomever is in front of you. And so we teach all of that stuff. And everything I do personally. I take people into the field. I don't teach it unless I do it, because I've got rules. One of my rules is if I don't do it myself, I can't teach it. So therefore, anything that I'm doing or I'm telling you, you can believe that I've done myself. So once we are deciding that we want to go out, and find our perfect match, find someone for us, and we don't have to, it's a choice, then we want to have some ability to do that. So not only do we want to understand our profile, we want to also possibly understand what other profiles we're going to run into. And also, we want to be able to ask the right questions. So there's a process called 3 Magic Question Protocol that I learned off Dr. David Schneider, and that's a really good testing and sorting profile, qualifying process. That within about 15 minutes, you can kind of work out, if you've got a red flag, you've got an orange flag, or you've got a green flag, because all human beings are really looking for safety. So we're really trying to communicate in a way that creates a safe environment. And the biggest question I get asked is, Dave, why do I go out with the same person with a different face? And I'm going to say that that's got to do with the maps. That's got to do with the profiles, and it's got to do with our ability to test and qualify. Because when we meet someone, we'll get a thing called positive emotional refraction, which is, and you can look this up for a doctor called Ekman. So emotional refraction is that we filter through the quality of a feeling. So if we have a good feeling about someone, we're actually filtering our data, even our conscious data, through the quality of that feeling.
Mm.
And if I'm looking at you and I'm feeling good about you, guess what? I'm only looking for the positive things. I'm only looking for the good things. So I might even filter out the things that are less than pleasant. So a lot of my work, of course, is helping people with less than pleasant relationships, and of course, not having less than pleasant partners. So once I'm positively refracting, then a whole bunch of hormones and chemicals are happening, which is making me positively refract more. In other words, I'm feeling better about you. And attraction's got 3 elements. So literally, if I'm getting attracted to you, I'm starting to filter. I'm deleting, distorting, and generalizing. So I'm deleting out anything that doesn't fit with how I feel. And according to neuroscience, when we have a feeling, we always accept that as true. It's never really assessed as, it's a feeling in the body, therefore it's true. However, a feeling doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Mm.
So if I'm feeling good and I'm looking at you, guess what? I'm getting attracted. And you may not be right for me. So what we do is we break these processes down, and we help people actually work through those things. We help them make the right assessments. Also, there's codes like the 7-step safety code. Everyone has this inbuilt safety code that we all run automatically. That's important, because if I'm a code breaker, that's a red flag. However, you might not notice I'm a code breaker if you're positively refracting. So again, another important thing. And there's 26 signs of attraction. So literally, according to Dr. Leon Loudness, 26 signs of attraction. So in reality, we are always constantly reading the face, the body language, the orientation, the proximity, the tone of voice, and words are kind of, they're kind of last on my list. I can usually walk into a room and tell you who's attracted to whom, who's not attracted to whom, whose taxi light is on, which means who's actually looking for another partner, although they've got someone else. And literally all of that, within about maybe 15 minutes, we can work that stuff out. So it's a very fascinating field. I could talk about this all day, but that's a very long answer to your very short question.
Okay. So when you're thinking about finding the right person for you, you got the 4
Yep.
kind of profiles. 3 of them you
I got
develop
yep.
as you're born, and then 1 is like genetics and epigenetics. Is that right?
Yeah, that pretty much. You've actually got 16 profiles.
Oh,
However, you've got a base profile. I'm going to call these identities. Okay, so you've got a default mode setting, which is your starting profile. Most of the time, we default back there, especially if the conscious mind isn't doing what it's meant to do and assess correctly. So we will default. So that's called a default mode setting. Then as you become an adolescent, you develop traits from, say, other profiles. From you're always adapting. Human beings aren't static. A lot of the literature, might suggest certain things. However, human beings are not static. We don't have one attachment style and that's it. We literally adapt. Now, we have things that are stronger, more stronger wired in us. So that's the earlier you learn something, the stronger the wiring, because there's no assessing faculty. There's no critical factor. There's no way to assess it and go, oh, that's me dad. He's had a hard day at work and he's yelling at mum. He's got some issues and I'm going to pay. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, that's a threat. I'm absorbing all that data, but I'm also recording whether that behavior is functional and meets a need and serves a purpose. It's a bit of a double-edged thing. So I might install that behavior, and then when I get distressed with my first partner, never going to be like my dad, and then I get distressed with my first partner, I find myself getting angry. I'm actually starting to now model the behavior that I've absorbed or installed, because we learn by modeling, not by words. So literally, that could be a default mode setting. And if I've seen it consistently in my life, then that could be very much wired into me as a way of dealing with distress. I just shut it down. I just shut them down. And aggression, hey, that works really well. Yeah, it gets people pretty scared, makes me feel pretty dominant, and I'm in a way, in a not a good way, empowered. So therefore, I don't want to consciously be like that. But later on, if I'm overwhelmed in my strategies, my ability to regulate myself emotionally, that may pop up. And it's said, this is said, if it happens once, well, you know what, it's data. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, it's a habit.
Mm.
So we develop these habits of thinking, feeling, and behavior. So yes, you've got these identities, your adolescent identity, absorbing more, learning more, and of course your adult identity around the age of 25 to 28. So the profiles are literally the adaptations. Now, human beings generally adapt in, I'm going to tell you, similar ways. So for me, it's same stuff, different day. So someone will say, oh, I've got this stuff going on. I'll go, oh, yeah, you're that profile, and you'll do that, 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 and that. And this is the person you'll attract. And lo and behold, it happens.
Yep.
Because generally what we do is we attract those that will help us emotionally evolve, will help us level up. So often people will come to me and say, oh, David, I really want to be happy. And I'll say, okay, well, pleasure is the point between two pains. And pain is the great equalizer. We don't generally learn from pleasure. Unfortunately, we kind of learn from pain. It makes us more resilient. So generally in relationship, you're going to attract someone who's going to push your button. They're not going to be the perfect partner, sit there, bring you your slippers and your paper and, do all of that lot. What's going to happen is they're leveling up, you're leveling up. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female. This is nature. I work on the human perspective. Nature's nature. It's got a way it does. It doesn't care about us. It always cares about the next generation. It wants the next generation to have an easier time of it. So literally, because that makes us all more compassionate and empathetic, right?
Yeah.
So literally, a partnership is gonna push your buttons. It's gonna challenge you in the places where you're vulnerable. And if we can build resilience to that vulnerability, build the correct strategies for that vulnerability, we can level up together. Often we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, this is too hard after 3 months. It's too painful. I'll go find another person. Well, guess what you're going to get? The same kind of person. So it's really an evolutionary process because we have resources and we have needs. Resources are the physical things, the house, the car, the shelter, the provision, much more your prime, or what we call our primal programming, yeah?
Hmm.
And then we've got needs. Needs are a little different. Needs are actually more emotional, and that's what we base our values on: love, trust, honesty, respect. Now, in early relationship, often it's about resources, providing resources. I need a car, I need a job, I need a house, I need to provide, I need to do stuff. Yet after a while, needs become really critical. because for a longevity of relationship, emotional needs have to be met to a degree, not perfectly, but there's got to be relational equity where what I bring to the party, you bring something similar, and we kind of match each other. If equity is similar, relationships generally survive. When equity changes, they run into rough seas. And often, and this is really true, this will actually happen in my office. Let's say a lad, he might be about 43, will come to me and go, David, my partner slipped the divorce papers across the table at me this morning, and I don't understand what's wrong. And I'm going to say, okay, that's interesting. Tell me about, what you did in your relationship. And he'll often tell me, not always, often say, I bought the big rock, I fixed a few fences, I got the property, built the house, went on the mines, worked FIFO, fly in, fly out, work in Australia. And you know what? I was a good dad and I provided everything, and I just don't get it. And I'm going to say this: did you meet her emotional needs? And he's going to go, and this is real. He's going to go, what are they? I go, okay, now you're on the Titanic. Not that thing that went down recently, but the actual big ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on the Titanic and you're arranging deck chairs on the deck while the band's playing and the ship's hit an iceberg. So the relationship ship is going down. Yet your partner's rowing away on the life raft. Now, she's rowed away a year ago. Yet it's still going down. You're still oblivious. So this is not everybody. We all have, we're all different, right? At the end of the day, the process of relationship is a leveling up process where certain things have to happen. And in the first instance, it's all about building something. But in the second instance, it's all about evolution and evolving together so we can model really good us's, good me's, and you's to our children so that they can model the better you and me to their children. And consequently, the whole planet is going to get better off. But if we're all doing the same thing intergenerationally and going, you know what, we've always used that pot, so we'll use it, but the roast doesn't fit in it, mum or dad. Oh, it doesn't matter. We've always done it that way, so we'll keep doing it like that. That's extinction.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you don't evolve, you become extinct in your relationship. And as I said, this is only about relationships in where I work. And I do the whole lot from the first introductions, all the dating stuff. I go out and I show people how to do all these techniques and skills, all the way through supporting people in different aspects of their emotional evolution. So yeah, it's a complicated thing, Tim.
Sounds like it. And so
But
you said,
fun.
yeah, for sure. So tell me about your motivation. What really gets you up and keeps you going every day? Why you like this work? Why do you do it? Talk to me about it.
Because I went through the same thing.
Mm.
I literally wasn't evolving. And I was kind of wondering why things weren't going well. And I mean, when I left the army and I was just kind of growing vegetables out because I had PTSD. So I was just growing vegetables somewhere, for 18 months living on government, which is, we call it Centrelink. But back then, in the 90s, early 2000s, you could kind of do that and get away with it. So I was living out there and I was having a fat time doing absolutely jack. Now, my wife we had one child and we had another one on the way. And she said to me, Dave, she has a psych background. She said, Dave, you really need to get a job. Sounds like a kind of a song I've heard, get a real job. Yeah. So George Thorogood or maybe Offspring. I don't know. It's either one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So literally, yeah, it's like, okay, what should I do, Dave? Being quite compliant back then. Yeah. I teach power control dynamics now, so it's a whole different world. But in the end of the day, right, it's like, yeah, okay. And she said, oh, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, I want to be a psychologist like you. And she goes, oh, you don't like statistics. You don't do maths very well. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't do maths. Rats and stats is not for me. Okay. All right. Now, how about I be a school teacher? And she goes, you don't like kids. I said, yeah, you're right about that. That's true. Ironically, with like parents, it's weird. But yeah, I do like kids. But, back then I was a little bit insular and post-traumatically stressed. So I hadn't reached the post-traumatic growth period yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally, she goes, why don't you be a social worker? I went, all right, I'll be a social worker. So I went to uni at 30, 28, 30. Didn't know what I was in for. Just got there. Yeah, it's really cool. Found out that I could ask a lot of really interesting questions. Often got told not to ask interesting questions. And I had this one lecturer, I will not name Kate's name. Whatever I do, I will not say Kate's name. So literally, she'd say to me, don't ask any questions. And I'm like, well, this is university. Aren't we supposed to expand our minds and, smoke heaps of pot and do all that lot? No, don't ask any questions. Okay, cool. Okay, well, what about the pot? Don't ask any questions. Okay, so there's one day, honestly, these are all true stories, right? There's one day, I only tell true stories. There's one day, these two people came in and they were working in domestic violence, right? And I had a program for men in domestic violence, and this is getting back to your question about my motivation, because I don't forget. And literally, they were telling about how you've got to do these certain things. They do these certain things with these men in this program. And Dave, being David, got asked specifically not to ask any questions at this lecture. Couldn't help himself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh man, this isn't fitting for me. So I kind of put my hand up, and Kate glared at me like, oh my God, don't ask any questions. And I said, excuse me, you're telling them, you're talking about this program, it's wonderful and all, and it seems to be working really well. Do you guys do that at home? You know what you're telling these guys to do? Do you model that?
Mm.
And the answer was no.
Oof.
And I went, now I'm asking questions. So I said, I don't get it. And I'm like this. I'm literally, this how you see me is how I am in most of my stuff. I said, I don't get it. How can you expect these lads to do the things you're asking them to do, yet you're not modeling it to them at home? So if you go home, I said, do you yell at your partner? One of them goes, well, yeah, we have fights. I said, well, you're telling these lads to do this, yet you're not doing it at home. How's that working? How can they learn anything? And of course, Gabe gets kicked out.
Yeah.
There's a whole process after that, but
Yep.
that was the day I thought, right, rule number one, always do what you say.
Mm.
Rule number two, blessed are those without expectation, for they shall have no disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, I don't have an expectation of human beings. Yeah, if I don't, I'm going to be fine. So what really motivated me to answer your question, Tim, is that I really felt that I had to do something that was useful in life. Not only for me, because I literally was driving down the road one day and I had an epiphany. Oh my God, it's about me. It's not about my partner. I should make the changes. Why am I expecting her to make the changes? Better do that, Dave. And so what happened was I got home that night. This is my epiphany, my change epiphany. This was a few years after the lecture, and I was working in social work. And no, I'm ex-military, so you can kind of imagine the home life, like.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, all angry and stuff, and lots of complex trauma from the past of my childhood, and suppressing it all. Suppression is depression, so wasn't going too well. And so I decided to make a change to my life and make a real change in my family's dynamic, which was pretty terrible at the time, I must admit. My kids will tell you. So literally, I sat down, and she's watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. You might be, familiar with that show.
Oh.
I don't know if there's any copyright or anything there, but it's a bit of a plug for those lads, and ladettes, So basically, here I am watching. Well, she's watching it. Normally, what I do is I walk past and bag the show, for the emotional content
Uh-huh.
and the drama. And I sat down and I looked at my wife, and she's like on the couch. You can imagine we're sitting in front of the big telly, and she's on the couch. She's real suspicious by this stage. She looks at me, she kind of leans away. It's not a good body language sign when your partner kind of leans away from you, not towards you. And, proximity is moving away. And so I sat there and I said this. I said, hey, babe, my best storytelling voice, which she hadn't heard before. I said, hey, babe, tell me about the show. I want to know more. And she went, what? What do you mean you want to know more? Normally you're bagging this show out. She was really suspicious. And I put my hand on a knee, and she's like, what's going on here? And this is the kicker, right? And here I am feeling pretty good about myself because I'm making some change. This is the first day, right? First
Yeah.
day change, right? So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And my daughter comes out and she goes, "Oh my God, has mum got cancer?" No word of a lie. and, and she goes, "No, I'm fine. Dad's just decided to be, I don't know, change." And I'm like, yeah, I'm changing. Mum's fine, mum's fine. And like for at least a week, she goes, "You all right, mum? You sure you haven't got cancer?" And then after the older daughter came out, the younger daughter came out and "Oh, it won't last." And walked off. And finally the boy comes out, he goes, "That's creepy. What are you doing?" Because he'd never seen me even show any affection to my wife, right? The other
Yeah.
two had seen a little bit. He hadn't, and he kept trying to push us apart. You'd be walking in the supermarket, and I grabbed my wife's hand and hold her hand, and by now, 3 months had passed, and we're getting a little better. And I grab her hand, and my boy had pushed through the middle of it, like literally break us up.
Mm.
And I go, "What are you doing, bro?" And he goes, "That's creepy." "Well, look at that couple over there. They're holding hands. They're older than you." "Okay, good excuse." "Look at that couple over there. They're younger than you." "Oh, and they go, "Oh, they're younger than you." I don't get it. What's the story?" He goes, "That's just creepy." It took him about 18 months to really get to, and this is where I understood modeling. I really got a real feel for it. Is that I'd modeled a behavior to my son, and it was hardwired in him. And he really couldn't get it. And it didn't matter how much I logicized it, talked about, what it was about. He kind of got that intellectually, although he still couldn't come to terms with the behavior until I modeled differently.
Yeah.
So this is my own experience. This is all true. This actually happened. It's in my third book that is currently half finished. It's actually happened. So literally I decided, well, you know what, Dave? I've got to help. Mostly, I help the lads, but I do have the ladettes that certainly want some assistance with understanding us. And I am biologically correct, not politically correct.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to offend. However, there's different wiring, there's different things, there's similarities, there's differences, and we have to take into consideration everything. I'm holistic. I work on a human perspective. So everything that's wired into us, often I'm called the human hacker. So literally everything that's wired into us is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at your wiring. I'm looking under the hood. I'm opening up the bonnet and I'm going, you know what? This is what's under the hood. Let's have a look under here. Let's see if we can tune it up. Some of it we can. Some of it, you got different models of vehicle. Doesn't matter what you're going to do, what part you put in there, it's probably not going to fit.
Yeah.
So we're not going to just kind of jam that in and hope to golly gosh that works, because you know what, down the track it's going to break down. So literally what we're doing is, well, I'm doing, and my wife's a big part of this. She actually runs the business. I'm the front person and she does everything else. And like I'm ADHD, so God, give me paperwork. And yeah, I'll read 3 lines. Never email me. You're only ever going to get 3 lines read, and I'm going to go, yeah, whatever. And I'll go on to something else, and she'll read the whole thing, detail orientated, specific as she is. Goes down, yeah. And she'll
Yeah.
then translate that for me. I'll say, give me a synopsis of that email. just give me the basics,
Yep.
yeah. So I get the basics. And it's like, yeah, cool, I can do that. At uni, it was great. I actually studied as a minor feminism, so I really wanted to understand how this works. I was the only lad in the class. You can imagine that, right? I'm in the feminist class. I'm the male. I'm the token male in the feminist class. And I wasn't token, actually. I was there by choice. And it was the best class I ever had, because not only, that was amazing. Not only do I understand heaps, what actually happened is everyone looked after me. It was brilliant. So I'm sitting there, and because I'm ADHD, they'd say, "Oh, you got to do this assignment, that assignment, that assignment." And I had some really good female friends in the class. I say, "Hey, can you summarize that for me before the lecture, before I get asked the question?" Yeah. And they give me the summary, and it was awesome. It's the amazingest class ever. So that really sort of helped me understand a little bit more. I'm all about understanding stuff, as you can imagine.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so that's my motivation, is really to help people from that perspective, from my real life stuff, but also from the science. I'm really big on the science of it all. And I'm really big on just people being people. Let's just be human, and know that, yeah, there's some things that are unpleasant and there's some things that are pleasant, and we're gonna work through and make it work for us in the best possible way, which ironically will also work for the other people in your life the best possible way. Because one of the things that really amazes me, Tim, about humor is, I love this part, is we all think that the more pain we give someone, the more they get it. I love this. So if I get really upset with you and I really, just totally like give you heaps of pain, poke the bear heaps, you're gonna get it. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. The more pain you give me, the more I move away from you, the more I put an
Yeah.
emotional shield up.
Uh-huh.
The more pleasure I give you, the more you move toward me and the more I trust you.
Yep.
So a lot of this stuff is and I don't work with couples, by the way. No way. We're actually processing language differently. We're actually applying there are meaning rules that we apply a little bit differently. So for me, I work with individuals and I help them level up themselves, and then I bring them back together again once they've got all that leveling. So literally, it's about just helping that individual be the best them they can be in the relationship, which ironically, because of modeling, if we model, I'm safe and I'm not, going off every 5 seconds or suppressing everything and being depressed, or, shooting this way or shooting that way or abandoning you or whatever, because that's a core vulnerability for certain profiles, abandonment, and then they'll just reject you and you got a big ice wall. So at the end of the day, it's really, for me, it's really about helping people at that very core level and having fun with it. My sessions are fun. I have a tissue box in my office. It's 2 years old.
Mm.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. You walk into my work, it's my happy place. Welcome to my happy place. What? All right, what do you mean happy place? It's happy place. Trust me, by the end you'll be laughing. It's easy. Because you'll then introduce a whole bunch of good, you use your oxytocin, your dopamine, and you get that, and it makes your brain flexible and you learn better. But when you're in pain, you become rigid, you focus on the bad stuff, and then you create your
Yep.
reality out of that feeling and that stuff. So I'm still miffed how telling painful stories over and over and over again is helpful. So at the end of the day, painful stories are really important when we first meet someone and we need to ventilate, we need to be understood and got. However, when we keep repeating painful stories, unfortunately, we actually generate more pain.
Mm.
Anyway, that's it for that.
Solid. So
I hope
I'm
so.
I'm curious about body language. How did you go about starting to study body language? Is it an active study of it? Did you just read a couple books and you learned what stuff meant? Talk to me about that.
Everything's in the field, Tim.
Mm.
Everything is field tested. Okay, so there's a bunch of body language specialists out there, and they're involved in law enforcement, like Navarro, for example. His first name is skipping me for the moment. Dr. David Schneider, who's actually, I've done some training with him, and he's amazing. There's just a whole bunch. Ekman, who was pivotal in the series Lie to Me. So there's these lads out there. They're usually involved in law enforcement or psychology or profiling. And first, I did what everybody does. I started reading information and material, and then I went into the field and I practiced and I observed. Best way to work, and all my students have to do observation. Like on Sunday, we were all doing observation. So I had 3 students with me, and we're observing body language of connection, and we're observing body language of attractability. So literally, after I learned what I learned from as much information as I could absorb from my coach and the people who know in the field who do it for a living, I then went out into the field and did it myself. And then you've got a field tester. That's the fun part.
Mm.
So you have to walk up to that perfect stranger and ask a quick question. Hey, do you mind if I just ask you a quick question? I'm really curious about if you can help me with this difficult situation that I've got at work. What?
Yeah.
My friend here, point to friend, him and I, we've got this little bit of a debate. We can't work out which exotic pet we should get for the office. And that's a really big tank, right? And we want to get an octopus or a seahorse, and it's kind of 50-50. Half of the lads and ladettes want an octopus, half want a seahorse. We're undecided. You could be the deciding vote. Can you please help me out with this decision? Yeah. So that's just one of the routines. So literally what I'm doing is I'm observing everything. Yeah, I've learned to do that. There's about 6 things going on at once that I have to notice. And
Yeah.
within 30 seconds, I'll be able to tell you whether or not it's going to be successful. So at the end of the day, I had to observe and I had to do these things, and they have to be safe. Everything I do is bulletproof. I've designed things so it's absolutely bulletproof. You can't muck it up and you can't hurt anyone. And you certainly can't create unsafety, because their communication is about creating a safe environment. So we positively refract, so we like each other, so we trust each other, so we actually get along a bit better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I started like everyone else. Literature, I mean, YouTube's a wonderful thing, and coaches. And then I went into the field tested it myself. And finally, when I got good enough at what I do, my particular part, because I'm intimate partner profiler, so I only need the intimate partner profile bit. I don't need the lie detection and all that. It's not necessary for my work. So literally, then that was what I specialized in, and I've been doing, and I can't turn it off. I do it all the time anyway. It's like, oh wow, oh that's interesting. Oh, your taxi light's on. Oh, you guys are really close. That's a very loving relationship. So yeah, that's how I did it.
So talk to us about some of the body language then. What's typical to see of people to that gives you certain signs of like taxi light, intimate relationship, this, that. Is it
Wow,
typical for
what fun.
people across
What
the
fun.
board, or is it like unique to situations and context?
It's pretty prescriptive, actually.
Okay.
That's the thing about humans. We think we're all sort of different. We all sort of, do the different things. We're unique. Well, we're not that unique.
Yeah.
Because how we learn through repetition.
Yep.
Simple. And, if you look at David Schneider does Chinese face reading, for example, and he tells us that the lines on the face are from making the same kind of expression over and over and over again. And that gives them a way of reading that person's inner experience. And it's the same for me. I'm looking for certain signs
Yeah.
that will tell me about a person and how connected they are to their partner. So something that I do, and you can try this at home, it's got a lot of fun, unless it's not. You get your partner and you put them here, you ask them to stand here, and you stand a fair distance away and you walk towards each other. And when you start to feel the wall, you stop. You'll get a feeling.
When you
And
start to
that
feel the wall.
the wall, yeah, you'll feel an emotional barrier there. Now, if you feel an emotional barrier there, that's actually where the nervous system has deemed you safe to be. Now, some people will just walk together and they don't feel anything. And either they're suppressing or they're actually really connected. But there's a lot of people, especially if they're having issues, you'll watch them. I'll say, okay, I want you just to walk until you feel something that's like, you'll feel a little barrier. So, there is your proximity. That's your safe zone. Whoa, it's not here, it's here. And so when we push people past the safe zone, we're actually making it worse.
Mm.
Yeah. So let's say, I don't know, let's do some attraction body language. How's that sound for fun? For
Let's do it.
S's and giggles. Yeah. I have technical terms. I did take that off David, the technical terms thing. I'll reference him definitely for that. So when I swear, I just say it's a technical term. It's great. It gets away with it really well, especially in workshops. Yeah. So literally, we have a 7-step safety code, and this is important. This was not created by me. This was actually created by, I believe, ladies back in the day. It's actually quite maybe the 80s or 90s. This was noticed. I don't know the exact reference for this, but I learned it off Dr. David Schneider. He has a video on it on YouTube. You guys can find it somewhere there. I've called it a 7-step safety code. It's called the mating dance. John Money and his mob who were doing the early life sex maps would have observed this. In fact, this probably comes around there. Everything I do, I reference. Everyone whom I get stuff off, I reference. Okay, that's important that I give them kudos for their work. My work is a bunch of stuff that I put together from their work, just made it better for my clients. Yeah, so it works for them and for me. Okay, so first of all, in a code, now normally we get two human beings doing this. It's fun, right? So we're going to call it a 0 to 7 code. Okay, I'll just call it a code because it's widened. This is a very primitive code. This is really old. So it's called a safety code. And what it means is that when we're out, we've got a connection code and then we've got the mating dance. So it kind of goes from connection code to the mating dance at a specific time in the process. This is all non-verbal. No words are spoken in the code. The code is just read, yeah, and it's read by each other. Now, as I said, I'm not politically correct, so I'm going to use male and female here. However, it's really interesting. It doesn't really matter. Someone will be running one part of the code, someone will be running another part. In other words, two human beings coming together. But generally, the lady, it's her code. It's a safety code, technically, all right, from nature. However, it doesn't have to necessarily be that. So she leads, let's put it that way. So if it's a male-female relationship, she is in charge. She leads the code. Males reciprocate the code, except level 6. All right?
Oh, I'm so curious.
So remember I said the first bit, probably 0 to 2. Maybe I should just make it 1. But anyway, 0 seems to be where it's at. 0 is what we're going to call anti-rapport. So imagine you've got two little human beings and they're back to back. Now, how many times have you been anti-rapport with a partner? Literally have walked away from them. Whoa. Anti-rapport, worst place you can be in any relationship, yeah? So that's 0 of our code. So number 1 is going to be more proximity and orientation. So the first part about is orientation and proximity. So our couples back to back, yeah? Now, number 1 of the code, they are side by side and closer. You see this in a dating example all the time. Someone's sitting in a place that's not a bar, and they're sitting there, and someone will walk up like this to the side of them, and they'll sit down. Guess what? Now we're going to do parent control dynamics here. Who holds the frame, or who holds technically the most power in that situation, would you think, Tom?
A woman?
Well, the person sitting down, yeah, it does male, female, it doesn't matter. But let's say it's a lady. She's sitting down. So technically, she is now holding the frame. We call it a frame. It's called frame control, yeah? So literally, okay, so cool. So that is number 1. So we're side by side, and we're actually not orientated towards each other, and we've got distance. Now, we say don't approach people from behind, because if you do that, it's automatically unsafe.
Yeah.
If you approach from the side, that's fine. However, just be aware that there's a lot of work for this one to do, because this one has to get this. Right? That's critical. So this is now level 2. Is the normal distance you'd be sitting apart from someone that's comfortable and your face on. Like if we were sitting in a room right now, we would be at level 2.
Okay.
And that's connection code. Now the next part becomes attraction code. So I'm not attracted to you, bro. It's all right. But look, we're just going to pretend, right? Well, it could be, but I'm not. Okay. So at the end of the day, the next part of the code is interesting. It's called object proximity. So what's going to happen is pretend you and I are sitting down at a coffee shop, and I'm going to play one party. Perhaps I'll play the female party for now. And I have my coffee cup. And I place my coffee cup slightly closer to you, by about that much. That's object proximity. It's a very old code, this. I'm putting something of mine closer to you to gauge how you react. Now, it might be my handbag, it might be my body, I might lean forward. I'm going to test that. Now, if I lean forward and you lean forward, reciprocation.
Yeah.
I then know that we've got a little bit more chance of connecting safely. This is a safety code. Now, if the lad leans forward and she leans back, guess what? Safety, nervous system, not good.
Yeah.
And I'll always test this because she leads the code. I'm not meant to be leaning forward at that point in time. Yeah. As I said, this is all unconscious. This is hardwired code. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So object proximity might be, you're in a place, it's not a bar, and a person comes up to you and go, can you hold my stuff while I go to the toilet? And there's absolutely no reason for you to hold their stuff. Now they've given you an object proximity. They'll also given you something personal of theirs. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So literally object proximity can anything. It'll usually be the body or some object that is placed closer to you. Yeah. And if we're using a male-female code, the male, and again, we get to do the lazy bit, right? The male just has to reciprocate. That's it. So if the coffee cup goes this far forward in 30 seconds, guess where my coffee cup goes? The same distance. The reciprocation is preferably be the same distance and same intensity of the original action. Yeah. So I'm not going to go put my coffee cup right across there and go,
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, what are you doing? That's a bit too close.
Yeah.
Now we're talking, right, at the same time, but this is going on underneath. This is a checking. This is a testing and qualifying code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our object proximity. Now, my favorite one, number 4, is a thing called reach. Now, I like reach. So let's say we're talking and then we go, touch, touch. It's the light touch. That's called reach. That is literally testing if you're going to bite me. Is he safe to touch? Now, I say to my lads, don't do reach first. It's called Keno in the old way. If you start doing reach on someone who's not ready for it, you're breaking their code. And so I get to consult in a lot of workplaces. I train in de-escalation training and I train in this stuff. So, if you go and reach out to touch someone and they are not ready for that, you are breaking their code. You're actually unsafe. And especially if you're a male, right? Because I'm going to say this. The most dangerous person or animal on the planet is the human male. Now, think about it. We are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, she has to negotiate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, she has worked out over many, many, many years how to do that really well, but she's got to test us out. So we have to be safe because when we were hunters back in the day and we were focusing on that thing, walking on, and I'm a comedian, so I can get away. This is comedy, right?
Yeah.
I'm a male, I'm focusing on that animal, I'm hunting it, I'm running 20 kilometers because I'm meant to move. I'm focusing, I'm silent, guys. I'm silent. No talking. Running. I see that thing, I hit it over the head, I kill it or mate with it, and I bring it back to the tribe. Job done. Sit down. I'm in my nothing box. Nothing's going on. And I'm good for that day, right?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't noticed anything in my periphery, right? Unless it's a predator. So I haven't noticed anything in my periphery. I'm only focused on the task. I do the task, I come back, job done. Yay. I deserve a reward. Yeah. So that's the real old wiring. Now imagine what's happening back in the camp. Back in the camp, if she sees me and I haven't had a good hunt, from 300 meters away, she can read my emotions. She can read how I'm feeling. She can see how I walk. She can watch. There's a lot of work on, just gait and how people walk and telling how they feel with just the gait. So she can see how I'm walking. She can see I haven't got anything to bring back, so I'm probably angry. Is an angry male a dangerous male?
Yeah.
Can he kill her and her kids? Back then, absolutely he can. So
Yeah.
what does she do? She hightails it with the kids. So she's got to test how safe I am. Touch. Is he going to hurt me? Right? We still do it today. Now, if I do the touching first and I'm technically, that guy, that's actually, I am that guy, but then I'm that guy, right? Literally, I'm in a way breaking her code because I am now she's got to be the one to test because she needs to know how safe I am for that proximity. However, let's say you've got a friend and hug your, that's different. If you know someone, I'm talking about when people first meet. I'm not talking about people who are, their family, their friends. That's different. It's a different thing. Safety code is the same, but it's different. Does that make sense? Right. Now, my favorite is level 5 of the code. Now, it was originally called Snuggle Space. That scares me. Scares me a lot. So I renamed it to the Mexican Stare Off or the Cone of Silence, as Maxwell Smart would say.
Yeah.
Now, the couple is going through, this is a couple, is going through all of these signs. So reach is happening continuously. Now, he's got to reciprocate. So she goes, touches him lightly on the hand, and he goes, and touches her lightly. And, the objects, the wine glasses are getting closer together, and you'll notice, this is where getting closer. All the non-verbals are going. Then there's going to be a time when the really interesting thing's going to happen. And when this happens because you'll get the 1,000-yard stare. So she will literally look at you and she'll hold your eye contact, and it'll be like all the sounds, and it will happen. You're at a thumping nightclub, yet suddenly you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
All you've got is this focus on her, and she's got this focus on you, and it's intense. It generates a lot of good chemicals, a lot of dopamine, a lot of oxytocin. It creates a lot of positive refraction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it also actually creates compliance. Just be aware of that. Ladies, be careful. So 1,000-yard stare, you're looking at him, he's looking at you, and it's like, oh my God. And just, it's just like that. And it will last for what seems like an eternity. And how I know it's happening is everything else disappears in the periphery. Even the sounds of the room. Now, there's a natural reason for this. When a couple's coming together, do they want their friends and competitors to come up and bother them? Have you noticed when couples are like that, no one will go up and tap them on the shoulder and go, hey,
Yep.
look at me. They won't. Even their friends will leave them alone. They go, oh, those guys are intense.
Uh-huh.
You see, it keeps everyone away. And it shows that now we're connecting on a very deep level. So and why I call it the cone of silence, because the sounds around the room disappear, and in the Mexican stare off, and the 1,000-yard stare, or that standoff, is literally you're intensely absorbed in that person, but that's also a trance state. I'm a hypnotist as well. So yes, I went down very deep, dark rabbit holes to learn all the things I learned. So technically, we are in a very much state of, it's a very open state, very vulnerable state. Yeah, very nice state if that person's right for you. Yeah. If that person's not right for you and they're emulating this stuff, that's where it gets tricky, and I can help you work that out.
Yeah.
So now we're good. Now the male hasn't had to do anything at this point. He's just sat there and just been the male. Now, sorry, lads. Now, basically, the next thing that's going to happen is it's now his job. He's got to do something. Oh my God, he's got to do something. Now, level 6 of the code, right, is he is now responsible to show the other person that he's interested in them. Yeah, non-sexually. This is where a lot of lads muck it up.
Uh-huh.
Right? He has to basically do a reach that's intimate but not sexual. So he might pick some fluff off her clothing. He might look at her earring. Oh, wow, that's a nice earring. He might say, hey, show us your palm. Show us your hand. Wow, that's a lovely lifeline you've got. And he does that down her lifeline. Gives her that feeling. He's got to do something that's and they might be, this stage, they might be, teasing each other, playing with each other. So at this stage, he's got to really show her, or him, because believe you me, the code runs all the way through, literally show the interest in a more intimate way that's safe.
Yeah.
It doesn't grab her and try and give her a kiss, which a lot of lads, oh, wow, level 5, level 6, yeah. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, pitchforks and torches at 100 meters. Right. So that's level 6. Now, level 7, what do you think level 7 is, Tom? Have
Mm,
a guess.
seems like sex to me.
Yeah, get a room.
Yeah.
Get a room. That's it. It's
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
They're into it. Yeah. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other things that go after that because, you know, as David says, he'll say, we often stop doing when we say I do. And the reality is this code, now this is the interesting thing, this code runs through your whole relationship with your partner, all the way through it.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. I read the code. So if I come home and my partner, I've been married for 26 years, yeah, she knows the code, I know the code. It's automatic. And I come home and I see that she is, maybe her orientation or proximity isn't right with me. In other words, there's something going on. I'm not going to go and go keno with her. I'm not going to go and do level 6 and try and give her a hug because she's going to reject me emotionally. The energy is going to push me away. Not because she doesn't love me, but because her nervous system is not at the level of connection.
Mm.
So I'm going to wait for her to do level 4. And she will. I'll be cutting the veggies up and she'll come along and she'll just run a hand down over my back or touch me on the shoulder. Then I know she's right to connect with. But if she doesn't do that, guess what? I'm not going to reach out and do that unless I ask. You can say, hey, babe, you mind if I give you a hug? And she might go, oh, that's okay, and that's fine because we're a couple. However, I'm still very intimately aware of the code. And if she's not ready for me to move into her proximity, her intimate proximity, then her nervous system will automatically reject me. And this happens with a lot of couples around sex. And yes, we do all of that lot. So, some people will push themselves through this code. They'll have that wall of the couples walking towards each other. That's the barrier,
Yep.
intimate barrier. They'll have that barrier up, yet they'll keep pushing each other through something that the nervous system says is not good for them.
Mm.
And then, of course, they wonder why it starts to break down. So words haven't even happened yet. Isn't this interesting?
Yeah.
The
It
words are even more fun. So, because they create meaning, yeah. So the reality is that there's this code, and it's really important in that initial dating stuff, that initial connection stuff. So I'm very big on the code when people first meet and they say, Dave, I want to meet a partner. I've got to do this. I'll say, you guys do that. You guys test, qualify, sort, but be aware of your code. And if he breaks your code and it's a repeated thing more than 3 times, then I'm going to say, have a think about that. I'll never advise. I don't give advice. I'll just say, just have a think about that. Because once a code breaker, unfortunately, can always be a code breaker. We're not taught this. How many times were you taught this? In school, were you taught the code? Of
No, no.
course you weren't.
I feel like it's funny because when you mention the code, so much more things in life make sense. Like
Yeah.
sitting in Christian community, there's
Mm.
always some tension between like the men and the women, whether it's single or married. It's like I
Mm.
feel weird talking to other women and even weirder touching like other women in
Oh,
any
yes.
sort of friendly way.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
it's because of that code. Like we all
Yes.
instinctively know that code. And it's like, ooh, that friendly touch is a little bit past connection. It's like starting to get into that
It
flirtatious
is. It
vibe.
is.
And so
It's
we
level 4.
avoid that, which is funny.
It's level 4. It's reach.
Yeah.
And as I said, you're not meant to do it.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're not meant to go, oh, hi, babe. Hi, oh, not babe. Here you go and touch. If she does it, it's different because she's
Yeah.
meant to if there's more of a connection there, and what I'm going to tell you is a lot of this is unconscious. It's automatic. So someone can be feeling good about you, refracting positively. Technically, they're attracted to you, although it's not sexual because you're not at level 7.
Yeah.
So it's more like I'm just testing the waters. Now, the easiest way, honestly, to break this is to change proximity. Simple.
Yeah.
So someone goes touch, male or female, and you're not comfortable, you just step back about that far.
Yep.
Just step back. Just a tiny bit. And guess what? Their nervous system will pick it up
Yeah.
because it's a rejection of the code.
So
Now,
interesting.
if someone keeps touching you, you know there's something really bad going. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's deliberate.
Yeah.
But if I am talking to people and they go, touch, I'll just step back a little bit, and then they won't do it again
Yeah.
because the nervous system has got a non-reciprocated response. Reciprocation is how we know to go. It's again leveling through a code. So we're starting here, and where every time someone does code and we reciprocate, next level can be achieved.
Mm.
It's always in the reciprocation of a code. So if I reciprocate, the other nervous system will go, yeah, check, go to next level. If I don't reciprocate, the nervous system will go, cross, okay, not interested, step away from the cookie jar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So different profiles will hunt. We call it hunting. Sorry, hunting. We'll hunt differently. We'll do things a little differently, but code is code. This is in everyone, male, female, whatever orientation you are. Trust me, the code is running. Nature doesn't care. All it cares about is leveling you up emotionally. And if he does that, gets a better next generation, doesn't care how it's done. It just does it. We are wired with this. It's the algorithm of algorithms. And
Well, awesome,
what you
David.
call it.
Thanks for taking us through, man. But we're at our time. We've been talking for an hour already about
Yeah, it
relationships
goes like
and
that, right?
people
This is
getting to
what
know
it's
each
like.
other. Yeah.
This is what it's like. And that's just a tiny bit of what I do. I mean, that is the smallest part
Yeah.
of literally this whole big thing. And, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. There we go. Well, awesome, man. Thanks for coming on the show and thanks for sharing all that with us.
Thanks, Tim. I
Is there
really
anything else
appreciate the
you
time.
want to chat about before we sign off?
Oh, look, you can find me on our website. The easiest way to get in touch with me is on the website at mymilan.com.au. So
Mm.
mymilan.com.au. We work online. I have a lot of students around the world. I do model things. So if you are in Australia, where we are at the moment, I'm in Perth, you will do field work with me. We get people together and we show people how this is done with real humans. So if you want to know anything about relationship, how to basically get one, maintain one, reframe one, in other words, fix one, or leave one, because I have people who really do need to leave them and they're kind of stuck, then please contact me, David Szynski. You'll see if you put in my Szynski name, you'll be the only one on Google for sure, and I get top ranking on Szynski. So it's pretty cool. But David, the behaviorist because I do everything to do with human behavior, so everything from the mental health work all the way through to the dating and relationship stuff. But I am a profiler of intimate partnerships, so I do work out who fits with whom and why. So please, please contact me, and more than happy to have a yarn or a chat, and we can see where we go. You'll get Deb. Deb would organise everything, and it'll be a Teams link usually. And yeah, we'll have a chat or in person. So, and just remember, blessed are those without expectation, for they shall have no discipline.
Mm. There we go. Well, David, thanks for coming on the show. And if you guys are
Thank you,
listening to
Tim.
this, thank you for watching. If you loved what David had to say, which I'm sure you did, because I did not know any of those things about human connection, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners didn't know any of those things, make sure to reach out to him at the website. It will be down in the show notes. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.